one who would lead Mordor's armies in war. The one they say no living man can kill. Slay them all. What of the wizard? I will break him.
Welcome, and we've got an interesting topic today. I'm very interested to see how this particular stream goes. It's got a lot of there's been a lot of discussion about themes, themes of stories, motifs, death of the author, stuff like that. And we're just going to kind of like give a general overview if there are any specifics that you would like to cover of this particular topic that we might not get to today. Please both leave them in the comments and chat with me on Discord, and I'd be happy to go into more depth with it. But first, allow me to bring in my guests. Aloha.
Hey.
Alrighty. And we have one more guest. Please welcome.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
This should be very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I have also some new toys to play with. I made some new streams, things.
Oh, nice.
You'll see them periodically, but like, I think this is the one where like somebody says, "Would you rather either like, would you watch The Last Jedi again?" I'd be like,
I would rather have my testicles shaved by a blind 90-year-old monk with Parkinson's. It'd be a safer bet than going to see this fucking movie.
It's so multi-purpose. You could use that on any movie.
Yes.
Well, yeah, but he's kind of got a point on The Last Jedi. I only watched the reviews of that movie, and I am so glad that I have not paid a cent or wasted any of my time watching it. Ugh.
Saw it in the cheap theaters for $3, and I had a half off the ticket, so I saw it for essentially $1.50. I still want my money back.
Yeah. And
Yeah. This is quite accurate because it calls The Force Awakens an actual movie, but
first one was a movie. The second one was an atrocity. The third one, go fuck yourself. If I ever see you, I will punch you in the fucking face. I swear to God.
Yeah, that's pretty much my feeling. I mean, T-Ross is kind of up there with the prequels, as LD said he had fun watching it, but yeah, the other two are just empty
At least-
husks
well-
of something.
At least the prequel story makes sense. Nothing in
Yeah.
Rise of Skywalker makes sense.
Yeah, it's fun to look at, but that's about it. There's
Yeah.
no story whatsoever, except what they scraped off of the cutting room floor. And
Yeah.
personally, I think it should have stayed there. Ugh.
Though I think that this one's very appropriate for when I show you something
Oh,
bad.
I didn't see the movie, so I didn't know it was going to be bad.
You are the devil!
Wow.
Yeah, I watched, let's see, Mahler's, I think it was Unbridled Rage.
of the Rise of Skywalker.
No, not of the
Or-
Rise of Skywalker. Of
Last
Last
Jedi.
Jedi. And I watched his review, and I'm in the middle of watching his extended review of Force Awakens.
As we
I-
all are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has he?
Part 4.
Part
Not
4
yet.
is the latest I've seen.
Yeah.
Part,
The one
part,
that divulges into EFAP references for like the last half hour. But then again, it's like 5 hours long, so we'll give him that.
What do you expect from Longman?
Yeah, it's his theme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I didn't create a Prezi for this mostly because like theme is kind of just like it's kind of an intrinsic element of the story, no matter how poorly written.
Yeah, you can find themes everywhere. Even themes that the author never intended.
Yeah.
But that's Death of the Author and probably best reserved for another day. Wink.
So
Yes. Yes. Definitely best for another day.
So for you guys, how would you define a theme? Just so we kind of like have a solid definition, I suppose.
A theme, huh?
Yeah.
I would say
It's like if you strip. Go ahead, Neph.
a theme is the underlying message of a movie in general, I would say. And movies can have a lot of those. But
Or any medium.
yeah,
Okay.
books too. So, yeah.
Hmm.
And I pulled it up on dictionary.com so we can define the term itself if you want.
Yeah.
But you asked for what we thought of it.
Yeah. I also have mine. It's all a theme says is an idea that recurs in or pervades a work of art or literature.
Yeah.
Sure, is all a theme really is.
Yeah,
So.
that's the second definition on dictionary.com basically.
Yeah, since the other one is like the subject of a talk, presentation, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I wouldn't necessarily say a theme would have to recur. I mean, it wouldn't have to have had happened before. The first story with a theme had a theme, even if no story before it did.
Yeah.
That's like generally what I would say it is. It's like if you were to strip away all the proper nouns from a particular medium and just reduce it to basic stuff, it's the high-level overview of what is going on in the story.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you familiar with what I mean by high-level? It's sort of a software development term.
I'm not sure I am. So
I have an assumption, but I would prefer to let you define
Okay.
it before.
By which I mean, When you're designing program, your low level is the nuts and bolts of where you're actually putting your logic and how you're going about doing what you want to do. The high level overview is up to the individual developers, because development is largely a team effort. So by high level, I mean it's the sort of the air from the airplane view of what's going on.
So like, okay, so I was pretty close in terms of, it's like you have the individual person designing section of the city of a model city on the ground versus somebody who is up top looking at all of the model city and trying to make sure that it's all coordinated. Is that correct?
Yeah. Another example is if you're looking at like an old war from more times where phalanxes were in fashion, where you would have one side amassing all their troops in one area and pressing certain areas. And if you looked at it from above, it would look like large blobs rather than individual guys on the ground. And that large level overview is another way one could use the term high level.
Okay. Simzilla wants in if you're down to having another person.
Okay. Let me bring him in.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So the link is in the stream team barracks. Let me just give him the
Yeah.
let's see. Just add there you go. You have access. Oh, I'm glad that you're here. Nice. Interesting stream. Yeah.
Yeah, the stream did just start.
Yeah, technically. Like 12 minutes ago. We were just kind of...
Yeah.
Okay. But
we're
in
just
terms of
defining our terms at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, it's just like the message less and less. And I believe John Truby defined it as like in the kind of the anatomy of story that like plot is like the bone structure, the story is like the flesh on the bones, the theme is the brain, and stuff like that.
And the characters are the heart or something?
Yeah, and the characters are the heart. Let me, just so I don't butcher it, John Truby, anatomy of the story.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say it would necessarily have to be a lesson per se. I mean, this isn't exactly G.I. Joe. Sometimes the theme of your story isn't an answer, but a question.
Yeah. Or it's some, like, or it's a coming into your own kind of thing. A coming of age story where the characters are trying to find themselves. And whether they do or whether they fail or succeed, that's not really what matters. It's more the journey, I think. With that
coming
kind
of age is kind of a premise rather than
it's a premise rather than a theme. But
yeah,
coming of age kind of goes with a finding yourself. Which is kind of what I was trying to get at. I'm sorry if I failed at defining it properly.
Yeah, like you don't know what the theme is yet, but you eventually discover it as you go through.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, that was my thought as well. Like that's how I kind of like. I just kind of like, ooh, here he is. Let me welcome him in.
Hello, all my Gaigans.
Hello, Zimzilla.
Run! It's Zimzilla! Oh, you can't see my lips flapping off sequence.
But my themes. Guys.
Yeah, my themes.
My themes.
Yeah. I suppose, like one of the things that kind of like this actually was this idea was actually sparked by a conversation with my sister, who is very much a classical literary geek, and like
Well,
she
that's
said,
always nice to have as a
depends.
writer.
It depends. She likes The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker.
Ew.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, she doesn't like
How
talking.
can she like those when she's into the classic literature?
Because
She
it
turns her
has
brain off when she watches-
themes.
She kind of turns her brain off when she watches movies and she sees the ideas of Rey rather than the actual execution.
Oh, okay. So she probably likes the prequels too.
No, she hates the prequels.
Nani?
How does that make sense?
That doesn't make sense at all to me. Because if she turns her brain off and just sees the ideas, then she should
I think part of it is the fact that it's a girl main character that's kind of playing into her bias ever so slightly.
Wait, which character?
Rey.
Oh.
Character is a strong word.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, she's not a character. Okay, so I suppose we should pose this question to you, Zimzilla.
Yes. And the question again, what would the question be? Because remember, I came in just a tad
yeah,
late.
sorry.
No problem.
How would you define a theme?
Yes.
Okay, so like, theme can mean two things, I would say. Of course, there is the theme, which is like the general idea or message that's trying to be get across in the story. And then theme can also relate to like the aesthetics of the world that you're in, like what kind of world you're in. I would say that like the theme of like cyberpunk can be considered a theme, a genre. It comes down to how semantical you want to be with your terms. But I would say in the context of the pervasive idea of themes, it's usually just the message and the through line of a story.
Yeah, strictly speaking, what you're talking about with like the aesthetics of something and it having a certain shape to it, that's what's called a motif. And that's different from a theme, but we could get into that later.
Mm-hmm.
It's another interesting topic.
Yeah. And I made the remark to my sister that I would say that themes are a neutral aspect. They neither detract nor enhance the story, and she hated that. She's like, my respect for you as a writer has just gone down because you don't really consider themes that much. And I'm like, I just don't care.
You can have a good story, just even if it doesn't have like a pervasive theme to it.
Yeah. And like, a part of it is kind of just like the fact that like, I've noticed as you write, pattern recognition kicks in and you just notice, oh, because of these events within the story, and like, as I've written it, this is kind of the theme. And it works well as like pattern, and I don't necessarily need to do a lot of editing to bring it out. I just need to like leave it as is and just let it be.
I think generally in the modern sense, there's a lot of people who think that everything has to connect on some kind of quote unquote thematic level. Like that's something I've seen a lot in a lot of people's writing. And I would say like in the age of the internet, there's a lot of like series and stuff that work a lot on the idea that, oh, this connects to this and it all is part of this big gigantic theme. And like a lot of times the theme is never usually put on display for the reader. It's usually, I think, better like good themes are ones that
usually subtle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it's more contextual, the theme is better instead of like this means something and then with this it all means this, and you can clearly see the themes on the walls.
I.e., Yoda saying failure is the best teacher. Oh.
We did it, guys. He said it. Man.
He said the thing.
Yeah.
Please clap.
Yeah. But it's so annoying when people do that. Themes are not supposed to be obvious. They're supposed to be somewhat subtle.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're getting into the distinction between theme and allegory, which also aren't the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Narnia is allegory. Like it's biblical allegory. It's the story
The
of
Wizard of
Christ.
Oz is
Animal Farm.
Yes.
Yeah, the Wizard of Oz too.
The first
And-
Godzilla, just to be relevant to myself. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And if we're talking about that, X-Men,
Yeah.
Yeah,
the way
actually
it
true. Yeah.
used to be,
What they're supposed to be, and they kind of fail at being because X-Men is less about mutant oppression and more about time travel when you break it down.
Break it down.
yeah.
It's
kind of funny.
Partially because like it's multiple comic writers working on the same thing, and there's very little collaboration.
Not only that, but they don't understand what
Some of them
X-Men
don't.
are.
Yes,
Some
yeah, a lot
of them do.
don't. A lot of
but-
them don't.
Yeah, most
Iceman.
of them.
Iceman. You
Oh,
like
God.
dudes now.
Mhm.
Ass-Man!
That is the only thing that actually makes sense because of how it's done. But at the same time, it's no, Gene. Why did you do that? Why?
Oh yeah.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' mutants gay!
Serious.
If they had to do that, they should have come up with a villain to do that, and not Jean Grey.
To be fair, technically speaking, Jean Grey has been a villain at points, but that wasn't one of them. At least it wasn't on purpose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my whole point. She has been a villain, but the best time to have her mind screw someone into being gay would have been when she was a villain, or to create a new character for when Jean's not a villain, so that the new character could do it. Why taint her when she's being heroic?
Or this tends to happen in X-Men a lot. There's this villain part of a hero's psyche, and sometimes that villain part gets peeled out of the character, and then it becomes a character in their own right. In fact, it's not even just an X-Men thing. The Magus is essentially that for Adam Warlock.
I did that in War of a Thousand Kings, where there's a piece of basically this girl named Navia. What happened to her is she was starting to experience cognitive dissonance. That was because her magic was splitting her in half. So she had to create a separate personality for one half of her magic. And she basically can swap between the personalities, almost like a Jekyll and Hyde situation where she looks physically different in one form than she does from the other. And one aspect of her is physical magic, like enhanced speed, mental abilities, strength, healing, that sort of thing. And the other half is magical base, like healing, throwing ice balls, fireballs, wind attacks, telepathy, that sort of thing. And one half of her looks basically like when she shifts, one part of her is like kind of short, has dark hair, and the other one is tall and has red hair. So yeah, that's kind of what I did with that idea. I think that's a really interesting idea.
Yeah, it is.
And then
Just
when
thinking
they
of all the
split,
themes you could explore with that.
yeah, where like basically it's almost like an AI story in a fantasy world, where when they split, Elaine is basically like, because she was made up by her host, like she has to figure out her own way. So, and because she's vulnerable, and because she's vulnerable to mental manipulation, some bad things happen.
Yes, as expected. So, are themes meaningless if the story is bad?
That doesn't feel like the right question to ask.
I would say themes are meaningless if the story doesn't support it.
Or if the story outright contradicts it.
Yes, that's yes.
Or if the
That's
author
what I think.
specifically said that, no, this is not the theme.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like
Yeah.
I can name a ton of times where people try to say, "Oh, this is exactly what this story is trying to say on a thematic level or represents implicitly." When
And the
you look
author
at the
goes, "Nope,
well,
that's
either
not
no
it."
or other parts of the film contradict it,
Yeah.
which then the argument becomes again, as I like to coin it, stupid's advocate. Well, thematically, it just means this in this one scene, which again, very, very dumb points.
Yeah. And the problem with, let's say, failure is the greatest teacher in The Last Jedi is that that's not carried through.
No, it's
Because,
not.
for one, Rey never, ever fails. It would be one thing if Rey failed.
Unless you want to believe some of these really baleful fan theories that I've heard.
Oh God,
Oh,
let's
okay.
leave that for another stream.
Yeah.
Because,
I think
yeah,
there's also like kind of like mechanically the theme of failure is the best teacher doesn't work with Poe. He doesn't technically fail. The plot just kind of screws him over.
Yeah.
And I would say that it doesn't work with Luke either, because Luke didn't fail. Luke was also screwed over by the plot.
Yeah, it's like nobody failed because of any logic. They failed because Rian Johnson said they did.
Yeah, so failure being the best teacher is not a theme.
Yeah, and even though the writer states outright that it's the theme, the issue is
the movie
did he
itself
officially state that
contradicts
outright?
it.
Yeah, he did, I think, on Twitter. Which he can't find his tweets anymore because he deleted his Twitter.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yes, thank God.
Didn't I tell you about that, Don? Or did I? I know I told someone about it, that he deleted his Twitter. We had a big part. I know me and someone else had a big party about that, finding out that
Yeah.
he deleted it.
When I found out, I wanted to do a dance.
Oh no, I crab raved to it.
I'm kind of sad because you can no longer get his idiotic takes.
Well, that's true. We can't get any content out of him now. But
yeah.
At least for once in his life he's smartened up.
Poe learns to obey authority.
Oh, you think that's a bad?
Well, no, it wasn't
that's a bad
Leia who
thing?
shot him. It was Holdo who shot him.
No, it
And
was
then-
Leia.
It was
Leia?
Leia.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've seen that film. I've had no
He
reason to
just
see it
came
again.
out of a
I've
coma and
seen-
nailed him center of mass.
I've seen that clip so many times, it just does not make sense. And
Yeah.
the whole thing with that is that you bitch, you don't need to tell him what the plan is, you just have to say there's a plan. That's all he was asking for.
The justification people have made about that decision, it's like, well, she's a leader. She doesn't have to tell her subordinates anything. It's like,
No, well, okay, there is the need to know thing, but
the need to know basis kind of thing.
yeah, the need to know basis. But there's difference between telling the people under you, don't
Also-
worry, I've got a plan, I'm gonna get us out of here.
Also, technically,
Then-
he's the second in command.
Yeah, well,
Which is-
technically.
Demoted, and stupid's advocate.
Yeah,
He was
but
demoted, but like
there's-
every other officer besides him and Holdo are dead.
yeah.
Mhm.
So there's a difference between telling the people under you that don't have clearance that you've got a plan, and telling them what the details of that plan are.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Just
the
blindly
details of the
follow.
plan,
Mm-hmm.
the details of the plan are need to know.
Mhm.
The fact that there is a plan at all is not.
Yeah, I think that like it's also kind of evident in like Canto Bight seems to be trying to do a theme of like moral ambiguity, or at least like capitalism is bad, but they kind of screw it over.
But it
Um,
failed.
Oh yeah, because of that.
Because-
who's that guy that
DJ.
like DJ?
Yeah.
DJ. he's never named in the film. Just people say he's called DJ because that's the alien symbol on his thing. But basically, like, but it's kind of like when he says like, oh, they kind of sell. Oh, when Rose says they sell to the First Order, it's like, nah. And then DJ says, nah, they also sell to the Rebellion,
New Republic,
and the New Republic. And it's just
Yeah,
like,
and that
So,
should have
that's-
given Finn some kind of context for that little
Yeah.
rampage bullshit he pulled.
yeah.
yeah.
As well as kind of, and also like it comes as being pointless because Finn, the theme of that he has just introduced of moral ambiguity there doesn't work because it doesn't affect Finn. Finn is just solidly on the good guys team. There's no element of like, I just don't want to be on any side because of it.
Yeah, and
Well, you know, if they actually
they
made his character good, that could have been something. I mean, he was brainwashed and like taken as a kid to become a child soldier, and now he's finding out that there was always people up on high, kind of manipulating these events to a degree, of course. But like, essentially, they wanted war to keep going on between the Republic and the First Order, and him and if he actually had sympathy for the other soldiers he was with, on like screaming "woo" every time he kills one, maybe then that would have been an actual good character moment. But no.
yeah, and it's like
Yeah.
they
And also-
completely dropped the fact that he's an ex-stormtrooper. It feels like.
Yeah, he goes from like, I am an ex-stormtrooper to I cheer when I see other brainwashed child soldiers die.
There's also
I'm a
the
good
element. There's also like they're trying to say that's how we're gonna win. Not fighting what we hate, saying what we love. That comes out of nowhere and is not supported by anything else in the
No,
story.
it's not.
It's even contradicted by what's in the movie, because what the hell was Rose doing letting those rhinos rampage through the facility? That's fighting what she hates.
Literally, yes.
Yes.
And that's
And
portrayed
then-
as just as good as Luke
And
coming
then
out
there's
of the
the
fire.
saying that the soldiers fight because they love what is behind them.
Yeah, those ideas are not diametrically opposed. I mean, even looking back to the original trilogy, Luke fought Vader with hate, but he still saved Vader because he loved him, because that was his bloody father.
Yeah.
And the only reason he went nuts is because Vader threatened Leia, who he loved.
Thank you, goof.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's
Because Ryan Johnson doesn't know how to write, whether it's a first draft or if it's something he took like 9 months on, supposedly, in air quotes, like Knives Out.
Well, he's
which doesn't make
he's a
any
bad writer and a bad world builder, but then again, the world building is also
He
JJ's fault as
hates-
well.
he has stated on multiple occasions that he finds world building to be boring. Which is
Yeah.
why there is no world building whatsoever in the new trilogy.
Guys, it just happens. It's a
Ugh.
series about space wizards for children. It doesn't have to make sense.
Consume. Shut up.
Just consume product.
This is a film about space wizards intended for children.
Thank you. Yes. It's just consume product and then get excited for next product.
I don't have
Yeah,
that
but
one. I need to get it.
Yeah,
don't
I
have
can
that.
send it,
but
I can
that
send it to you after the stream.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. But that's not how it works. Because the movies are just not entertaining.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Disney. None of your Star Wars movies are entertaining.
They're also rip-offs.
No, seriously. If nobody had made movies in the last 20 years,
Mhm.
this movie couldn't fucking exist because they borrow so heavily from every other fucking movie that's ever existed in the history of man.
The throne
Also
room
true.
scene is a ripoff of the throne room scene from The Wizard of Oz.
The Wizard of Oz had a throne
Don't you mean
room scene?
Return the Jedi? Don't you mean Return the Jedi?
No,
Oh.
The Last Jedi, when they first enter Snoke's throne room. That's a ripoff of Wizard of Oz entering the throne room.
Oh, really?
Yes. I
Yeah,
kid you
because
not.
Return of the Jedi was actually done effectively. That's like the scene everybody likes from that movie.
Yes.
And nobody
But
likes,
that
and barely
scene's-
anyone likes the Ewoks.
Yeah,
I'm
but
kind of
that
partial
scene
to
is.
Luke wrecking Jabba's shit.
But that scene's not a blatant rip-off. That scene is an homage. There's a difference.
Mm-hmm. And I think even Dunn can attest to this. Like the first time we ever had a call, and it was like about writing, the amount of like need for me to have consistent world building was probably a lot more paramount compared to like story. And even then, when I talked about themes, I'm like, the themes have to be consistent with the world building because then the world doesn't make sense and therefore the themes fall apart. So, you actually be good at world building, guys. I think that's a big problem with writers nowadays is that they aren't good at world building.
Yeah, they can't do it. And that's why people call it bad fanfic, even though it's actually corporate fanfic. Corporate fiction.
I'd also say that like too many people are obsessed with allegory these days and not themes. Like they think they're writing themes, but instead they're writing allegory because we all know the majority of villains in the last couple of years represent a specific man. You might call him a Cheeto due to his orange skin and his hair and his small hands and his there's so many theories that have said, oh yeah, this is totally meant this person. And at the end of the day, that's not theme, that's allegory. So no one's been writing themes, they've been writing allegory.
It's like talking about that. Tolkien himself published a lot about how much he did not like allegory and preferred just writing things that just incidentally could be applicable to certain eras or certain time periods or certain personality types.
Yeah.
Applicability. Thank you, Doug.
Yes.
Do you have his specific quote up, Dunn or Drake?
I wish. I can look it up.
Yeah.
That actually would be something interesting to explore.
Yeah, let me grab it.
But yeah.
So applicability to the thought and experience of the readers means the readers are free to think about the work in any way that works with their thoughts.
I found those quotes. I found another one.
Yeah,
I cordially dislike allegory in all its manifestations, and always have done so since I grew old and wary enough to detect its presence. I much prefer history, true or feigned, with its varied applicability to the thought and experience of readers. I think that many confuse applicability with allegory, but the one resides in the freedom of the reader, and the other in the purpose domination of the author.
As well as also, he's not even saying that allegory is bad. He's just saying he dislikes it, which I think we can all agree here that we're not telling you allegory is bad. We're just saying how allegory and themes can fail you in your writing.
Yeah. And
allegory is also one thing, usually. It is directly applicable to one thing. Like Narnia, for example, that's allegory, like especially like Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Maybe not necessarily the maybe not the other ones, other than perhaps Magician's Nephew and The Last Battle.
Yeah, The Last Battle especially not.
Yeah, The Last Battle and the first two Narnia books are very allegorical. The other ones are not necessarily as strong on the allegory. Horse and His Boy, not really that allegorical. Prince Caspian, not allegorical. I guess you could say that Voyage of the Dawn Treader is allegorical, like it's kind of the travel to Elysium or whatever. But it's not like as like kind of on the nose as Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is very much like the death of Christ. And Lewis has stated this, as opposed to like something like Tolkien, where he's like interweaving multiple different things. Like even though like you have like the ring being a sign of marriage, of the ring's marriage to Sauron, and the ring being a round because of the it's kind of a metaphor for the marriage of Sauron, and that's why it's trying to get back to Sauron because it's married to Sauron.
Mhm.
And kind of the story, though the story of Beren and Luthien is kind of allegorical to Tolkien and his wife, because Tolkien had to do a lot of like tests to earn his future wife's permission from her dad, and they ended up being buried on their tombstones. Tolkien's had J.R.R. Tolkien and then Beren underneath it, and then Luthien was on his wife's tombstone, and they got buried next to each other, which I think is very cute.
That's
Aw.
nice. Yeah.
How would you classify Fahrenheit 451? Allegory or applicable?
I have not read that one.
That's read by Ray Bradbury.
Yeah. It's the
Oh my
book
goodness.
burning one.
I have not read it in some time.
I've heard of the movie, and that I stayed away from it because it wasn't very good, even though it had Michael B. Jordan in it. Crow is here.
I
Hey.
think.
Hello,
Hey,
bird.
Crow. I think. Let's see. That maybe people find it easier to write allegory than it is to write themes, and that's why they mistake them. But I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
I think maybe it could be stated that for what's it called, for newer writers, writing allegory is probably one of the best places to start. But like a healthy understanding of the difference between themes and allegory is important when you start to branch out.
I think one example is actually who here has read The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Okay. So I highly recommend it. The Wheel of Time is The Way of Kings, I mean, is my mother's favorite book of all time, and it's one of mine too. And because one of the things about Brandon Sanderson is that he somehow, just by writing like good characters who are flawed but are trying to be better, he makes you want to be a better person. Like, I think it's the way that my mom like describes it. But one of the things about that is
Sorry.
my themes emoji here.
He's talking about LDs, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have channel emojis yet. Sorry.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I'll have to come up with some, as well as some server emojis. I don't really see the point in those. It seems like a lot of unnecessary effort, but
They're fun.
yeah.
I use the pen the most on the servers because of that.
Yeah. But basically the theme that I would say of the
No, don't bring that up. Please.
yes, I think
Please.
Your rang, King Kang, being Brack, as a theme, not an allegory. Baron.
Oh, God.
yeah. I would agree with this wholeheartedly, Jake the Surgeon. Themes have kind of been ruined. I don't think that they have been ruined. I think that they have kind of gained a bit of a bad rap when they're neither good nor bad. They're neither good nor bad. So.
And they gained the bad rap because the people writing have no idea what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a big issue is like with like The Way of Kings, the theme, I think intentionally, that Brandon Sanderson is exploring is the theme of leadership, but he doesn't do that through like stating the theme of. He basically just shows various characters kind of discussing principles of leadership through through dialogue and character interaction.
And that's how you're supposed to do themes. It's not supposed to be, oh, this failure is the best teacher is. No.
Yeah. And part of it is like they have an in-world book called The Way of Kings. That's a treatise on leadership where
Oh, nice.
like where it's like how a king should and a leader should act. Like a king should lead from the front, should not should abide by certain codes of conduct during times of war in order to be ready at all times.
Mhm.
Basic
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. And then you also have a character who kind of just who is able to who lives by these principles without knowing them, because he was a former squad captain and he was a really good squad captain, and he just was able to he just understands like how to lead men, but he leads by example rather than telling them to do things.
Yeah.
Like,
which is the best kind of leader.
Yep.
That's the kind of leader that Vader supposedly is. Well, no,
Yeah.
Vader is because he was part of the ground attack during ESB on Hoth. So,
Mhm.
and
I think-
that's
Well, the thing is, like, the character in question that I'm talking about, Kaladin Stormblessed, is a slave who's being forced to run bridges. Basically, what happens is he's a slave along with in a bunch of slave bridge crews, where what happens is they're on a kind of think of it like a crisscross of chasms with a bunch of plateaus in between the chasms, almost like a wonky checkerboard, or with uneven spaces. And what they do is the bridge crews will run across the plateaus in front of the army, lay bridges, then let the army pass over, and the others will and then they run out in front of the army again, lay the bridges down, and then let them pass over and then go. Oh, and they're used almost as a shield because the enemy army will shoot arrows at them. And that's kind of the point, is to draw attention away from the High Prince's army.
Oh.
And so when they lay them down, a lot of bridge crew slaves die in the attack, because as they're trying to lay the bridges down before the army comes, and they want to prevent the Parshendi want to prevent the bridges from being laid down, so that the really, really heavy bridges from being laid down, so that the army can pass over onto the other side of the chasm.
Mhm.
Ah.
And for a while, Kaladin is kind of apathetic, like he's broken inside, but then he realizes I need to try and do something for these men. And he really struggles with a lot of moments of depression throughout the book. He's not hopeful. He's been very much had a lot of things taken away from him, including his little brother.
Oh no. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of like seeing kind of a lot of callous leaders in comparison to two actually good and noble leaders. And even like one who kind of used to be a bad guy in his past, Dalinar Kholin, who is now trying to kind of reform himself.
So he's on the road to redemption.
Yep.
Okay.
I highly recommend it, and especially since Rhythm of War is coming out next in a couple months. I'm very much excited to read that, because so far Brandon Sanderson has written four of these books, but the nice thing is, unlike George R. R. Martin, he puts out like a book or two a year.
Nice.
And like, this book is huge. I have The Way of Kings somewhere. Where's The Way of Kings? Oh. It's a big book. It's like 1,300 pages, and here it is. Yeah, he puts like a book like this out, like I think like 2017 was the last one that came out. So like it takes him a while, but because he writes like 6 drafts or so. I don't usually. I'll usually like 2 or 3 drafts mostly because my books are not this long. They're like half to a third of this length.
Word count
at very most. Yeah.
We should highlight Jake's comment.
Oh,
actually, both of them. That one is
right
above that.
Okay. Isn't getting to look at women. You get to look at women.
Sorry, no, that's not a theme.
That's not much of
nice,
anything.
But it's definitely not a theme.
Oh yeah, and being poor is the
no, it's not. No.
I had no idea that he would get that stupid talking about Wizard of Oz, but we'll leave that for another time.
I looked it up, and there are actually cards in the 1899, but when I tried looking for how pervasive they were in the U.S. in general, I couldn't find a percentage. So
of what again?
Of how many cars were on the dirt roads.
Oh, okay.
So, I'm pretty sure that are going on about I do not think Dorothy's family or anyone in the community that they lived in had a car.
Probably not.
Yeah, which is why we don't see any cars until maybe they get to the Emerald City.
Mm-hmm.
Unless those... No. Those were horse-drawn carriages with
Since...
rainbow horses.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that kind of like you need to, with a theme, I think that kind of just natural, like you can have intentionality with a theme. I don't know how much it needs to be intentional though. Because my thought is if you write a consistent character in a consistent world and things slowly happen to them, a theme will just naturally flow from it. Like one example in my own writing is unpublished as of right now, but it will be coming out in a couple months, is War of the Dragons, where the War of the Dragons is kind of just the culmination is kind of a short-term but very bloody conflict between 2 Dragonlord factions and 2 Dragonlord kingdoms, where both sides have been kind of like sniping at each other for years, and they've been kind of and it's kind of been a cycle of violence, and then finally the 2 biggest dragons fight over a waterfall, and they end up killing each other. And
does one of them get some of their fingers bitten off and can't play the guitar anymore? We talked about the cycle of violence, so I'm just asking for a friend.
Oh, good lord.
Hey, come on, this is serious thematic resonance here.
But
that is a very bad revenge plot and has no place in a post-apocalyptic fungus zombie world.
Especially not with the characters that it uses.
Yeah.
That I would argue is the biggest problem with Last of Us 2, whereas The Last Jedi failed by being completely incompetently designed and shooting itself in the foot with its own theme cycling back in on itself recursively. The Last of Us 2 could have worked if you didn't know who the characters were, but if you know who Joel and Ellie are, the idea that Joel would be so stupid as to fall into the trap he wound up falling into, if you could even call it a trap, it strains the disbelief that this is actually the character. It's like the writers just threw them into this situation because they wanted to. They didn't think about what he would do. They thought about what they wanted to write.
And even then, the ending doesn't really make sense in conjunction with their themes, because their theme is about ending the cycle of violence. And they've had people who developed the game say that, if Ellie had killed Abby and Lev, then the cycle of violence would have continued, when in reality, if she had killed those two, then no one would have known about it, and therefore the cycle would have just ended naturally like that.
That. It's like, let's end the cycle of violence. Also, let's talk about the ammunition.
Okay. So to answer, I don't have any investment in The Last of Us to begin with.
I don't either. But the theme, supposedly the theme of The Last of Us 2 is that revenge is bad.
Yeah.
Apparently.
That's what I would say.
Revenge is bad. The cycle of violence is a continuous cycle unless someone tries to break it. Something big at sandwiches.
But Count of Monte Cristo, you ain't.
The idea that violence is bad, and that maybe you were the real monster this entire time, totally not a overused trope in zombie apocalypse literature, but
which is kind of what I wanted to explore in the War of the Dragons, because it's basically the sequence of events is mostly like the side that we're mostly siding on is the Silver Dragons faction as opposed to the Red Dragons faction, where one side is moving in on their territory with the intent of kind of like finishing off the enemy, and the other one is trying to defend their turf. And then one of them, there's initially a battle with the elves and orcs against humans and orcs on the other side, and with two dragons on either side. The one dragon is the one of the sides has larger dragons. However, the scale is tipped when a third even big dragon comes in and kills one of the silver dragon's beasts, and her and her rider are the mate and dad of the other rider and her dragon, and that spurs that lady to want revenge on that rider and her dragon. And then it's compounded when they're betrayed in their when they're trying to find refuge in a city. The people in the city betray them and put up a flag over the houses where their troops are at, and the enemy dragon just blowtorches it. Blowtorches those houses in a straight line, and then they have to run, and on their dragons, and her brother and his dragon and his girlfriend run away and go south, and she goes north and burns the fields in the north, and makes it so that they're partially unlivable for several hundred years. And also,
actual consequences in a fantasy world.
Yeah,
almost like a certain science fantasy world could have done that. I don't know.
And then it gets worse because she actually makes it personal for the other rider and dragon by killing her daughter and nearly killing her dragon. Again, because I think it's Marielle is the name of the girl, and Thanatos is the name of her dragon. He's a big blue dragon that breathes ice fire. And he nearly kills Tyranna. She shoots the girl, and the daughter of the antagonist and his first wife, and with an arrow, and makes it so that she nearly kills her dragon Tyrannus, and she runs away trying to get Vagar and Dana to chase after her so that she can get them on equal ground so that she can mutual kill both of them.
Smart.
And then for several years, like, they kind of are just in charge because they still have the red dragons still have 3 dragons at their disposal, and they just kind of stay there while Darien is in the south with his wife and their 2 kids and his dragon Catastros.
Oh.
Why does that name sound familiar? Catastros.
It's from Power Rangers.
Power Rangers Mystic Force. There you go.
Yes, it's the name of the Black Horse. I like that name. I'm stealing it.
I'm like, was it Power Rangers or Sentai? Yep. I'm like trying to remember, but there.
Yeah.
Thank you. And
so, but the way that it's ended is not by a final fight. It's by the fact that the antagonist, Odin, has these dreams for decades about Darien coming and killing him. And so he decides, no, I'm going to try and end this, but I'm going to end this in a way that is not going to perpetuate the cycle. I'm going to try and find him and make peace with him. And so he goes down south and tries to find his half-brother, other Darien. And they make peace. Their kids marry each other, and Darien's daughter actually wakes up Odin's comatose son, and that's kind of the resolution of that particular conflict. And it makes it so that the kingdom is united under one banner, as it was a while back before it got split by one guy's ambition a long time ago.
Well, that's certainly one way to handle incest.
Yeah.
The best way to do it is to not have the 2 people who you're trying to get married to grow up together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just like one of my Japanese animes.
Also seems to be a pretty good point. When you're taking revenge, make sure that your character is actually taking revenge against the specific person that wronged them. Otherwise, it's petty.
Yes.
Yeah.
And don't make a situation where the cycle could be ended via revenge and we could still have a satisfying end,
Yeah.
Truckman.
Yeah. And so, but that was kind of a theme that I just noticed, like, as I was writing, I'm just like, oh, okay, because of this pattern, I can make this the theme of the book because of this pattern, and I don't need to do much editing to try and bring it out. It's just naturally there as the story I've written.
What, did you Discovery write it?
I have a plan. I have a vague plan, but sometimes I will shift. I'll shift the ending. Like, for instance, I was actually thinking of having him come back and retake his throne by force. But then I realized, no, that wouldn't work. He's not that type of character.
Yeah. That might be something else to discuss. The difference between writing themes into your story when you're a discovery writer or a planner.
I would say that if you're a discovery writer, I think you kind of usually will either have the theme in mind and you'll discovery write around that theme, or you'll find the theme as you're writing.
Yeah. Like, I would probably consider myself a planner, but then, like, as I'm writing something, I may come across something that may change how my particular plan panned out.
Fast.
Yeah, exactly.
My particular plan panned out. 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 My particular plan panned out.
Well, I'm more of a planner too. So I'm using let's see. I'm using an outline format for the writing exercise that you gave us this week done. So
You're welcome.
yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Oh, that's official now?
Yeah, that's official.
Well, my writing exercise pretty much died in the water. Might as well.
No, you're fine. Sorry. I'm really sorry about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fairly ambitious. I was hoping more people would be into it, but they weren't.
Eh.
Yeah.
Oh well. I'll take revenge on that next stream.
Yeah.
And next week on Dragon Ball Z.
Well,
No, it's because revenge is our next topic, I think.
Some scenes and realized what themes I could do with them and tried around and landed on one.
Yeah, I'm a very strict planner. I've had some issues with discovery writing personally, and so I like to use the theme. I like to come up with the themes just at the start and just know up front what they are. Because when you have a theme, because the big problem with planning out is actually getting from point A to point B. And if you have a theme in mind, it can help assist your word choice. You'll see if you're paying attention and go back to my that thing I read for Phalanx, that being chapter 2, where Phoebe and Ophelia were hanging out for the day. You'll see that a lot in there. That the word choice is directed a lot by the theme.
I've found that I can discovery write, but I write better when I have a plan. So
tell us, Neph. Tell us that there is a plan. Tell us that there's a plan.
Yeah, I just realized she's the only chick here, so yeah. What's the plan?
Don't worry, guys. I've got a plan.
No, you already didn't do it right. You're supposed to not tell us if you have a plan at all.
That's true.
Yeah. I also kind of noticed, like, some of them are, like, kind of simple. Like, Blood of the Dragon is very much a book about kind of just legacy and how two different people kind of take up their dad's legacy, where one is kind of more quiet and kind of just works as kind of almost like a just administrator, and the other one is a conqueror gaining territory for the Empire. Admittedly, under pretexts, or false pretexts, at least she's being lied to about. She's being lied to about like who she's getting her orders from, but she's managing to do a lot of Alexander the Great type maneuvers to win, as well as utilizing dragons very strategically as opposed to just burning things. She's very careful about how she uses her dragons.
Like more Machiavellian, or like only burning people just to agitate them into action strategically, or like tactically, like flanking an enemy side?
Tactically. One example is basically what she knows is she knows the enemy is coming, but she knows it's big. So she wants to force the enemy to split. So what she does is she tells the leader of a very valuable city to say, "Come here. The army isn't here yet." So that way the enemy will think, "Oh, we can easily run up to this city and take it before the enemy arrives, even if they're already there." So she preps. So she preps by putting like a covered pit stake, a pit of stakes in front of the city, as well as bunkers behind the stakes with crossbowmen.
Oh, nice.
And then cavalry and dragons to come around the flanks of the enemy army and force them to surrender.
Also, one thing I just realized is that if you worry too much about like themes and how well they're going to run across an entire book, just write short stories and make an anthology, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why I like the style that I'm using for Blood of the Dragon, because it's a continuous timeline, but each book is isolated from the others in terms of the characters. because it's like spaced out by either decades or hundreds of years, and it's kind of each, and it's mostly just like humans and other dragon riders in conflict with each other rather than an overarching evil villain for the whole series. And kind of like Wrath of the Dragon is very much about the kind of, sometimes you need to get your hands dirty during war, and you need to do really terrible things in order to protect your family and the side that you're on. And how that's not necessarily like a thing that's just kind of a thing that happens, and that sometimes you need to completely knock down the enemy in order to make sure he doesn't get up again.
War sucks, win fast.
Yep. It's basically like, as opposed to it's basically just hit the other person and then while they're down, stab them. Repeatedly.
They did until they stopped moving.
Yep. That's a good question. I think just talk about it in the writing exercises, I think is the best way. Since some people might not be comfortable, just kind of talk about like your progress, how you're doing with it, how you feel like it helped you with your writing. If we could do that, that would be great. Because I want to see like how these exercises are helping with specifics. Maybe if anybody feels comfortable about it, I could like have a stream where we chat about it and like how the writing exercises have helped, that sort of thing.
I'd be down for that.
Yeah.
For me, honestly, they kind of get in the way, but that's just a time management thing.
Yeah, I think it's kind of
largely it's not anything anybody here can help.
I think like it kind of depends if like you're doing a lot of projects on your own versus you kind of are just trying to kind of find inspiration for what to write. Like,
definitely. Yeah, I've been trying to do the writing exercises, but then like I've been working on a bunch of other stuff plus doing the scripts for YouTube, so I'm like,
part of the reason why I've kind of dropped off on the writing exercises is because I've been working on my fanfic, but there is some stuff that I really would love to either turn into an anthology of short stories or an actual book series. I think I'm going to turn the fur trade thing into a series of anthologies. And then this latest exercise you gave us, I'm hoping to turn into a series of books.
Nice. Yeah. We seem to have strayed far away from themes, but
but
going off topic is like our theme.
Yeah, like you can see the thematic resonance in which we have done, always trying to keep us on track. This
you
is
probably
symbolic.
should have made a Prezi.
I think like it's like it would kind of if I did made a Prezi, it would probably be like just what are the themes of these specific things? How do they and
you didn't really want to do that.
Yeah. And it would kind of be like I wanted to kind of talk about like themes in general, because if I guess like what would do you think that themes are, how important would you say that a theme is to a book?
As important as the author wants to make it.
Yeah. I would say characters, plot, world building are the top 3, but themes would be near the bottom of the list.
I'd say characters and world building would be at the top, plot after that, and then themes following that. Because I'd say if you have good characters and you have good world building, an average plot can be carried a long way. And if your world building is really good, that means people can continue to put stories into that world. But like if your whole thing is carried by but my themes, then it's probably not going to be good.
I kind of disagree with that a little bit. Remember when I was talking about high level and low level? The characters, the world building, that's more low level versus a theme is what guides your character's world building, setting plot, etc. It's guided by your theme from above. So they're completely different tiers of what affects your work. So to compare them isn't really fair.
I suppose, but at the same time, if your story is only carried by the theme, then
you don't have a story.
Yeah. It's I like to use the example of a broken. You can have a good story with a functional plot and not very much of a theme, but you cannot have a good story with a broken plot and a good theme.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps state it like you can feed a man for, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, but teach a man to 2 fish and you feed him for a lifetime.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Give a man a fire and he's warm for a day.
Yeah. Because
teach him to
if you
make it.
Set him on fire and he's warm for the rest of his life.
because if you have a good plot and good characters, usually a theme will flow out of it, and but if you have a broken plot, the theme is rendered moot and meaningless.
I also think how people read into themes can kind of like show a bias in a lot of ways, because in many ways themes in like the idea of authorial intent or like death of the author and all of that, you can kind of see like, well, this is definitely most positively the theme of this story. Well, and we're going back to The Last Jedi again, and so many people say,
or
oh,
Game
this
of
is
Thrones.
Or Game of Thrones, yeah. But I'm particularly thinking of The Last Jedi due to Rian Johnson specifically saying, oh, failure was most definitely the theme of this story.
Yeah.
I think he's lying. I think he just came up with that retroactive.
He pulled that out of his ass.
No, he didn't pull it out of his ass. I think he, because people were saying that was the theme, he just kind of ran with it.
That's another thing. What if someone else notices a theme in your story and you don't actually notice it? Like you did subconsciously put it in there.
I know Ray Bradbury, I don't have the quote on me. I did it in a project for class. It was like on short novels and stuff. And I remember him specifically saying that there are times where your reader will read into your story and find a pattern and then say it's a theme.
I think.
And what was his take on that? Or was it just like a statement of fact?
He was just saying that can happen, but in a lot of cases, something is just something in a story. Like I think it was like a vampire is just a vampire, not a commentary or a theme or something like that. I'd have to find the quote again, but that was one thing I remember him saying, is that like people can read into a theme of the story even if the author didn't, and just because they read into it doesn't mean the theme's actually there. Sometimes it's just a noticeable pattern.
I think that actually very much applies to Game of Thrones because there was literally no theme. There is, like, I feel perfectly justified in saying that Benioff and Weiss did not intend any themes. They are,
you talking about the show or like
the show? Both the show and the scripts. Because all they seem to really like care about is just making dumb jokes in their commentary, and they don't talk about like writing decisions or script choices like a normal author would or writer would, and they just squeal, oh my goodness, look at their face, isn't that face that they're making amazing?
Or like, how can we address this character in this scene?
Yeah. And they're just fanboying over the actors.
Faces with no context means nothing.
Yeah. And it's kind of just like you try, and it's just like like any theme, because all they said is like, I think like even like at Austin Film Fest, they said, oh, we didn't really try to boil down the themes of the books. We just tried to put the scenes that we wanted up there, up on screen, and just thought about that.
No wonder it eventually fell apart.
Yeah, because David Benioff has admitted, I'm not good at long form story structure. That's why he got around it by making 25th Hour just happen over the course of one day.
Everyone is better at long form storytelling than he is.
Yeah, and it's just like you try and like I think that there were themes in the earlier seasons, but just as the show goes on, the themes kind of go away. Like I guess like there's kind of the war is bad, the best king is the king who doesn't want it. Some people like Just Right read into it that, oh, all women are too emotional and too unstable for power.
What?
Yeah. Unironically, you think I'm kidding. Just Right actually said that in his video.
Good God.
What about
Sansa? What about Sansa? Yes. He conveniently only like thinks of Cersei, and like he said that Sansa should have been queen of the Seven Kingdoms, not just the North.
No.
Not Bran. Sansa's horror. Sansa in the show is a horrible person who broke a sacred promise in front of a heart tree to her brother.
Yeah, I think that she has the mind for it, but I don't think she should have been the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms now.
Yeah. I agree.
One of these days, I'm interested to kind of like take a look at the comparison between Just Right's Game of Thrones take and his Last Jedi take, because both suffer from the exact same problems, but he notices the problems in one, but he deliberately ignores the other.
An overwhelming bias. There, I solved Just Right.
So.
I can't wait to see
He also, I think, his Last of Us 2 take. That's another one you should look at.
Yeah, I think Smudcast already did that, but I'm just like, I don't know enough about The Last of Us. I haven't played it either of the games, so I don't know if I could comment on it as much. So I think that like what we could do is, and we've already covered his Rise of Skywalker critique on Smudcast, and that's
I remember that.
Yeah, it's like 24. It's interesting. Like his negative stuff is longer than his positive stuff. Like his TLJ thing is like 8 minutes long or something, like 8 to 12 minutes long. It's really short as opposed to 20 minutes.
That's not enough time to do an in-depth review.
Yeah, all he says is the amazing the Last Jedi and the 7 basic questions of narrative drama, which is like, you're citing Film Crit Hulk? No. Film Crit Hulk is not a reputable source. He's just kind of a dude with a weird gimmick.
Yeah, no, that's not what you want to do.
Yeah. But it's just like the theme, like with Game of Thrones, it's just like, when you look at the author's intent, it's just like, there was no authorial intent from Benioff and Weiss. They didn't care. And like it makes sense because themes are for 8th grade book reports.
And college ones too.
Also, tone. I put more effort in setting a tone than setting up themes. Tone is important if you want a story that is dark, like Empire Strikes Back, Temple of Doom, and Dead Man's Chest. Let's see.
Yeah, because I'd say
tone is also important. I'd say, let's see, world building, characters, plot, tone, and then theme.
So Space Junk, we don't really have time for that. I need to hop off for Smudcast in a little bit. So, but what if you put that question in the Discord, and we'll discuss it there? I think that would be That would be great. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Since if I do that, I'll go on a long tangent with me and Simzilla, and Drake and Neph will have nothing to add because they've never seen the show.
Oh, I've seen the show.
Well,
I've seen
no,
what
Drake and
you've
Neph.
shown
I
me.
mean Drake and Neph. I mean, not
Yeah.
Simzilla. Sorry,
Yeah,
I was
I'm-
saying me and Simzilla would chat and
As
leave
well
out
as like
Drake
we'd
and
also
Neph.
like it'd be like a lot of book tangents too, so that would make it even
Yeah.
longer because
Yeah.
and then we'd go into like the differences between the show and the book and how like all that's gonna play out. We'd probably just EFAP that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that like I'll have to see if I can find maybe Count Valerian of House Tatters. Maybe they would come on and see if like I can find some other Assault Ice and Fire fans to come on and like just have a roundtable discussion of like book versus show and where we think it's going. That would be a long one though.
Oh yeah.
But in terms of like theme, George R. R. Martin actually does have themes in his books, like.
But you wouldn't know it
yeah.
because Benioff and Weiss didn't do anything with them.
Or they changed a few of them. Like in one thing, they changed it. So in the first 3 books, 2 pivotal characters died because of the cost of love. Well, no, the cost of honor.
Yeah.
In the show, they changed the second one to the cost of love rather than the cost of honor. And I think that works okay. It's not as meaningful though. Because
As well as I'd say like it also kind of I'd say there was a little bit more connection between those 2 characters. Are we not saying their names just for the sake of people who may not have seen or read the books, or can we say who those 2?
I don't care.
You don't care?
I don't care either.
Okay. Yeah. I think kind of like just there are some people maybe who haven't heard of the Red Wedding or the first. Well, I don't know. It's kind of become osmosis, part of osmosis.
Yeah, because
I
I heard of Red Wedding through osmosis.
Yeah. So I guess so. Like, yeah, I guess like Rob Stark, the Stark guys, and it's so early on in the series. But then after they're betrayed, the bad guys in books 4 and 5 are having to deal with, oh, we betrayed these people that everybody likes, and now we have to. These guys hate us for doing this, while these people are still vehemently loyal to the Starks. Because
As well
the Starks
as like
were
also the fall of Rob and Ned. I think Rob's fall is a little bit more impactful, being it was a matter of honor in the books versus love in the show, because it's the same fault as his father, and it feels more in keeping with Martin's world and how realistic it was. Because like Rob's failings are the same as Ned's, and there's a similar results to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of it is kind of like but it's kind of George R. R. Martin is kind of exploring that the short-term gains of the bad guys through treachery, but then the long-term losses of it. And a lot of people don't necessarily catch that because they stop after book 3 sometimes, where they take a while to get back to it, or they think that the 4 and 5 are kind of boring, which
I can say that I was one of those people. Like after 3, I kind of dropped off, and then I came back.
Because like it's kind of the equivalent. Books 4 and 5 are kind of the equivalent of like the slog in Wheel of Time, where the books take. There's like 6. There's about 4 books. Books 7 through 10 of the Wheel of Time, where the plot slows down dramatically, and book 10 is like covers like the course of like 3 or 4 weeks, as opposed to a few months in the case of the other books. Yeah. But in terms of the like structure, we have the themes there. We also have the themes of the cost of war as well, because George R. R. Martin, like, even though his action scenes are exhilarating, he still shows the aftermath of war and how like war affects the little people really, really hard. Like
Yeah.
like there's one particular area where most of the fighting took place, and it's trashed utterly. There is very little left over. Hundreds of people, thousands and thousands of people are dead. There's and it's part of that the overriding theme of the Game of Thrones is a petty. There's a more threatening adversary coming down from the north, as well as having a really evil adversary set up and started in book 4, carried over to book 5, and is hopefully going to be in book 6, and is hopefully going to have a satisfying thing in book 6 if he ever finishes it. Please, George.
Are we talking about Squid Crow?
Yeah, Squid Crow. Good old Euron Greyjoy.
Finger in the bum.
Yeah. That
so
man.
bad.
Yeah, that guy was totally ruined. Ruined. The worst.
Okay, remind me again. Were you trying to avoid a Game of Thrones tangent, or?
Yeah, trying. But yeah, it's like I'm trying to like keep it on like at least like the Game of Thrones themes, as opposed to like just complaining about the show being a piece of garbage.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. But it's like, and those themes are clearly intended by Martin, and he does a good job of implementing them, as well as like just the human heart in conflict with itself is often more interesting than that of a Dark Lord, or than of man against Dark Lord. It's more interesting of man against man. So that's a big thing. I think. Is there anything you guys would like to add about like themes? Since
I think probably like one thing it would probably take us a long time to do, especially if we have like the same 4 people. Because you did go into like how you were working with themes in your own story. I think what would help is if we showed examples from our own writing and sort of like where we took our themes, or where themes didn't really work with what we were jiving with, and how we changed them, or how we just dropped themes altogether.
Oh yeah, I got examples.
Another stream in and of itself, and I know you have to get on Smudcast soon, so that'd be something I think we could add. But that'd be like tangents in and of themselves.
Like themes in practice.
Yeah, themes in practice, essentially.
That would be fun, actually, I think. I'm not sure what I could contribute, though, because I'm a fanfic writer, and that's kind of
yeah, your themes are built in. Actually, not necessarily.
Well, that would be, I think a good idea would be to kind of like see how a fanfic writer works with the themes already presented to them, and like what kind of twists and turns they can do, and sort of squeeze their own creativity out of it.
I'd have to figure out what the... No, wait, I think I know what the... Yeah, I think I know what general theme I would be able to find in Sword Art Online, because that's a story about a death game for the first arc.
Yeah. So, and I think that Drake has gone over like how he like considered the themes of his book. I guess like how do you do that with your stuff, Zim?
So I would say it depends on sort of the world I'm working with. They're like working with characters. I would say the best thing I do is I usually start with an idea for my story, and then I go to the characters, and then as I'm writing on an idea for how I think a character is logically going to act, and I start seeing patterns with a character and how they react, I then zero in on it, and that sort of becomes a theme in and of itself. So I could say specifically with something I'm writing, I just finished it yesterday, so I printed it out just to do some proofreading of it. And where the story left off, it changes how this character could be viewed by other people in the story, and it might like start a theme of sort of revenge or accountability, as it were. And sort like his character and where he was going was set up in the first part of what I'm working on done. You've already you saw the first draft of that.
Yeah.
I'm working on like revising that. So it sort of comes in with how my characters act, and if I see patterns and I feel that there is a point to add to it, then I can work a theme into it. But usually I start out with an idea, not necessarily a theme.
Yeah, that's what I'll use is like idea rather than theme or question. Like, what is, like with Prince of Winter, it's like, what is like better, an slightly incompetent good guy or a very aggressive but competent gray character, as opposed to that? And like, which is the better king?
But what are the themes of framing monsters? Racism, cuckoldry, reaching, mental gymnastics, money envy, probably some kind of penis envy, especially when you talk about the black buck. But yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I think we'll have to close out there. This has been a good discussion, I think, and we barely scratched the surface.
Oh yeah.
I think there's more that we can discuss, but I think like at least like getting like kind of just having like a generalized discussion on themes, I think will at least be kind of helpful for people, like in terms of like how they form themes and kind of like realizing that like kind of themes kind of naturally flow out of good writing. They aren't necessarily intrinsic to good writing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think they kind of just happen.
Themes in practice stream would be really good because that's sure it would visually show the process for everyone.
Yeah. I'll have to work
this
it
isn't
out.
even to assume that we're all doing it right.
While we were talking about this, I think I finished the outline for the first book of...
Oh, nice.
Yeah. We'll see how long it actually is, but I'm actually pretty happy with that because I have, let's see, I have the attack in the beginning, and I have a little bit of a mentor thing going with an old wizard that might not be the same type of mage that the child is. And I end the book with a confrontation between the person who planned the attack on sorry, Smudcast started on
yeah, you're fine.
The house in general, and I have the young mage losing at the very end.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's where I finished with the first book, because I think that's a
nice
good place to end it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm gonna have to do this, do that on my own, like to create it, like just on part of my off season as I'm finishing stuff. Since right now I'm in the middle of publishing / writing just like old stuff to get it ready for publication.
Yeah.
So, and thankfully, like in the spring, I'll be done with school, and I can just focus solely on writing. Thankfully, at the moment, I have like 9 books in my library, and I'll be able to have I'll have about somewhere around like 11 or 12 by October.
Yeah. So my word count, just for the generalized outline, is 207 words.
Oh, nice.
That's good.
Well, we'll have to do a themes in practice another time. I'll put that on the docket.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know how far in the future we'll do that, but thankfully there's not many topics that have built up. So we'll do, I think this Thursday's Revenge Stories, and I will definitely form a Prezi for that one to take a look at like the various, it's mostly action movies or and kind of like elements in a book, and I'll just come up with that tomorrow. But I think now it's that part of the show where I have to tell you all to
Holy shit. Okay, We're going.
Bye, guys.
See y'all.
Yeah.